so we can all hear each other,
Welcome,
which
councillors, members of the public and staff. A bit of quiet, please. My name is Councillor Ed McDougall, Mayor of Bayside Council, and I declare this public forum open. Sorry, can we please stop the conversation, guys? Thank you. I declare the public forum open at 7 p.m. Everyone at the public forum is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone, do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. Defamation laws do apply. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette. All present are reminded the YouTube video recordings and official record of council will be accessible via YouTube in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. No other recordings are permitted, and all present should ensure there are no video recordings, audio recordings or photographs taken. In case of emergency, please follow the instruction of council staff, exit via the town hall foyer and proceed to the evacuation point. I'd like to begin the public forum by acknowledging the Bidjigal clan, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and also acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. On behalf of Bayside Council, I pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. Councillors are reminded of their obligation to close conflicts of interest and to manage those in accordance with Council's Code of Conduct. Does any councillor wish to make any disclosure of interest? No, thank you, councillors. Members of the public who have applied to speak at the public forum are now invited to address the councillors. Speakers are reminded that if a matter has been raised by a previous speaker, there's no need to raise the matter during your address. Please only speak on additional matters. No decisions are made at the public forum. Members of the public that are registered to speak in person will be called forward during the public forum and invited to proceed to the lectern. Speakers have been advised of your allocated time to address the public forum. A warning bell will sound when only 1 minute of speaking time remains. Speakers will not be able to present material as part of their speaking time. Speakers are also reminded to keep communication factual, polite and professional and to use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. Of course, defamation laws do apply to addresses in the public forum. You're invited to stay afterwards to listen to all other public forum addresses and watch council's meeting immediately following the public forum. We have 5 speakers tonight, starting with item 11.2, response to notice of motion advocacy for Bexley Station on proposed Cogra to Parramatta train line. Mr Matthew Robson speaking for the motion. Mr Robson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm speaking on 11.2 to endorse the model of advocacy that it demonstrates. When Council thought New South Wales authorities should include a train line at Bexley on the proposed line, Council resolved to advocate to state authorities, write to ministers and members and engage with the community. If this is what Council believes advocacy looks like on an issue which Council has no direct decision-making authority, the residents of East Lakes are entitled to ask why the model of advocacy applied in item 11.2 has not been brought to bear for our community. East Lakes Shopping Centre is currently subject of a major SSD application that Council's own federal submission raises serious concerns about and recommends changes. Recently, the exhibition of this SSD had a limited opportunity to have their voices heard from residents. With the exception of Councillor Boudlet, the public promotion of submissions being even open from councillors was scant at best. Publicly telling your own constituents they have a formal right to participate is not exceptional advocacy, it's a bare minimum. It's not a minor communication failure and it falls well short of the advocacy model shown in item 11.2. Councillors privately expressed the concerns had been advocated for and were pushing for awareness. But invisible advocacy is very convenient as it cannot be scrutinised nor measured. Community members have also been reminded repeatedly that councillors no longer have involvement in the decision-making processes. However, decision-making and advocacy are not the same thing. Residents know this and are rightfully angry the advocacy mechanisms applied in item 11.2 for other areas of the LGA are not being equally afforded to them. The state decides is not an explanation, it is an excuse. Residents are approaching people first privately, respectfully and constructively. But where residents cannot secure advocacy privately, our councillors and state reps should expect to be asked publicly. There is still time to change what happens next. East Lakes Shopping Centre should be redeveloped, but the community should have its voice heard in how it is redeveloped. Advocate for us, as you have shown you can in item 11.2. There is still an opportunity for East Lakes and the council to be on the same side. I would genuinely welcome questions and meetings after tonight and I welcome councillors speaking out publicly. My request is simple. Do your jobs, advocate with us, advocate for us and tell us publicly what you are doing. We would much rather work alongside our elected representatives than spend our energy pushing them to act. The community is ready to work with anyone in this chamber who is prepared to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Robson. Item 13.3, notice of motion, Rockdale, Banksia and Carlton to Bexley North Active Transport Corridor. Ms Andrea Jackson.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors and council staff.
Please support this motion for a low-stress bike route through the back streets of Bexley and Rockdale. Most of Bayside's low-stress bike infrastructure in this zone is north-south, largely designed to suit commuter cycling. Bicycle use has changed dramatically since COVID, with the rise in popularity of e-bikes and shared e-bikes. A much broader spectrum of residents can now ride. Pedal assist allows people to travel much further than they otherwise might on a conventional bike. Cyclists are no longer just mammals riding in formation, but everyday people, young and old. As such, I think the time has come to add east-west links between community hubs, links that encourage residents to choose cycling over car use for short trips. In Bayside, the average car trip is 7.17 kilometres, which is about 15 to 25 minutes on a bike. This proposed route would connect residents living near the T4 train line to Bexley Aquatic Centre, Bardwell Valley, Bexley Library, Bexley North Shops and Train, and if they're really keen, onward to the M5 Linear Park and future links north to Canterbury Bankstown and onward to Walleye Creek. Conversely, it would give Bexley North residents access to the M6 Active Transport Corridor, Brighton Les Sands, Botany Bay, and connections south through the Foreshore Path or the future Kamei Greenway. This map has been compiled by people who already use these routes. They have brought this to Council because they recognise that at the moment, these routes really are only practical for confident riders. I hope Council actively integrates the feedback of our Walking and Cycling Forum participants, because these are the people who understand where gaps and barriers actually are. I'm a parent and I ride a 5-year-old to kindergarten, and so safety is always at the forefront of my mind. I always take the safest, most separated bike path because I want to arrive at my destination less stressed, not more stressed. Please support this motion because it's not just about confident cyclists anymore, it's about recreational riders on a Sunday. It's families, children, commuters, e-bike users and essential workers, ensuring they're safe, fun, healthy, and they have a realistic alternative to car use every single day. I ask councillors to please support this motion.
Ms Jackson. Item 13.4, notice of motion completing the works of the fields at Scarborough Park North. Ms Irene Hatchepetros.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, General Manager Meredith Wallace and council staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight in support of Councillor Nagi's motion regarding the completion of works at Scarborough Park North. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the investment and the great work that Bayside Council and the New South Wales Government have already made in this facility. The work undertaken on the main and mini fields, including irrigation, re-levelling and returfing, together with the other improvements to the facility, is significant and very much appreciated. But I think it is important tonight to remember that the matters contained in this motion are not new. In October last year, this council considered Scarborough Park North and resolved that further improvements be considered in the next capital works budget. And thank you. Those improvements specifically included upgrading and rectifying the turf on the rear fields, installing drainage and irrigation on the rear field, and drainage and irrigation works on the main field. So in many respects, what Councillor Nagi is asking Council to do tonight is to follow through on a direction that Council has already supported. And there is a very practical reason for doing so. A football field can have excellent irrigation and new turf, but if it does not have adequate drainage, particularly after significant rain, its usability and the life of the investment can be compromised. We know that pressures do exist across Sydney when it comes to access to sporting fields and the challenges Council face. Football participation continues to place enormous demands on available facilities, particularly for junior football, women's and girls' football and growing clubs. Every usable field matters. Scarborough Park North is already an established sporting facility. Scots Football Club has been its custodian and understands better than anyone the practical issues affecting the fields throughout a football season. That is why I also strongly support the part of the motion requiring Council to liaise with Scots Football Club regarding the scope of works. I do add, Mr Mayor, that Council staff should be commended in their engagement with sporting clubs. This isn't about giving a sporting club whatever it asks for. It is about Council working with the people who use and manage the facility week after week so that works undertaken actually solve the problems experienced on the ground. I also appreciate the General Manager's comments that the rear and eastern fields areas were outside the scope of the existing grant funding project and that there is an opportunity to coordinate further works with the stormwater renewal proposed for 2027 and 28. But I also ask that this motion is also supported this evening. If Council already knows that the stormwater works are coming, then now is the time to properly plan the drainage, irrigation and turf works together, determine the appropriate scope, identify the funding required and make sure we don't undertake work twice. Most importantly, Council has already recognised the need for these improvements. There has already been substantial public investment in Scarborough Park North.
Please wrap up, Ms Hatzipour-Ross.
Thank you. The sensible approach now is to protect that investment and complete the work necessary to make the fields as functional, resilient and usable as possible. For those reasons, I respectfully ask councillors to support Councillor Naji's motion. Thank you again.
Thank you. Item 13.5, notice of motion, Rockdale Illingdon using Bicentennial Park East for training. Mr Zvonko Milankovski.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. We're here tonight to represent our club, Rockdale Illingdon. Many of you may know our history. We previously occupied Barton Park, where generations of our members worked hard to build and establish our club. We were then forced to relocate to make way for the Cooks Cove development. We accepted that relocation and, although reluctantly, established ourselves at Bicentennial Park. It is important to recognise that our current clubhouse was delivered by council on a like-for-like basis of that forced relocation. The facilities were left behind at Barton Park, had been built and funded through the efforts of our founding members. Without their contribution, there would have been nothing to relocate. In 2009, we signed two 21-year licences. One was for the Illingdon Sports Centre. Then our club members have invested millions of dollars into improving that facility. That investment continues today, including the construction of a new women's amenities, which will become another valuable asset to our community. Also in 2009, our juniors commenced their tenure at Bicentennial Park. It was effectively a blank canvas. Once again, the club invested its own money into irrigation upgrades, floodlights and extensions to the canteen. Then came the F6 project. For the second time in recent history, Rockdale Illingdon was forced to relocate. Our juniors were again left without a home. We ultimately negotiated a relocation to Memorial Playing Field, a quality facility funded by Transport for New South Wales, and we are grateful for that. However, the reality is that when we went from having two full-size fields and one mini field at Bicentennial Park to one full-size field and one mini field at Memorial. That loss of space has had a significant impact to our junior football program. Our understanding throughout the relocation process was that when fields affected by the freeway works were returned to use, Council would support our access to those fields. We had several meetings with Council where we clearly expressed our concerns and our need for additional field space. That is why we are extremely disappointed when Bicentennial Park returned to use this year and we were not granted a licence or even a permit. Instead, Council chose to allocate these fields as required, and in 2026 it was used by Scots FC after they were displaced from Scarborough Park. We understand their circumstances, but Rockdale Illingdon was also displaced. Our juniors at Memorial consistently number more than 700 registered local players. Those players are effectively being squeezed onto a full-size field. Training has become extremely difficult and available space simply does not reflect the size of our junior program. We sought an interim permit for 2026, it was not granted. We sought a limited licence, it was not considered. We believe that it is grossly unfair. Looking ahead to 2027, there will be no displaced teams, local teams requiring Bicentennial Park. Rockdale Illingdon has always self-managed itself. We have taken responsibility for maintenance, outgoings and our licence obligations, and we have consistently invested our own money into the facilities we use. Our request is simple. We are seeking a licence over Bicentennial Park for our juniors with limited access for training purpose only. We are more than happy for Council to retain control and allocate the field during business hours and on weekends. We are not seeking exclusive use. We're simply asking for a fair and reasonable allocation that gives more than 700 local junior players adequate space to train. After being displaced twice and after continuing to invest in our facilities and our community, we believe that request is both
Please wind
reasonable
up.
and justified. We simply seek what is a licence that ensures our juniors have a place to train. Thank you very much to all the councillors that support our club.
Thank you, Mr Milankovsky. Mr J Catino.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. Good evening, staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this motion this evening. My name is Jay Catino. I'm the chair of Football St George, which is the governing body for the grassroots football competitions that take place throughout St George and in the majority of the Bayside LGA. Rockdale is one of the member clubs of Football St George and Fields teams in our competition. They're seeking access to Bicentennial Park East. Football St George has a slightly different position to that of Rockdale that I invite you to consider this evening. First and foremost, we thank the Council for its continued support and investment in all of the green space facilities throughout the Bayside LGA. That's very welcome. We're very grateful for that. Those spaces are obviously under ongoing and continued pressure because of various user groups and their growth. And for very good reason, the Council adopted a sports ground allocation policy. And so as a first step, we urge the Council in respect of the decisions it makes in relation to the allocation of fields to observe its policies. In relation to that policy, it provides for a hierarchy of priorities, if you will. One of those priorities which ranks highly is historic use of a ground. In the case of Bicentennial Park East, a major historic user has been Rockdale. So on the face of it, Rockdale would appear to be a very attractive proposition to allocate that ground to, but there is a bigger picture as a governing body that I invite you to consider very closely, which is amongst the other priorities are other local clubs and of course the discretion on the part of the Council where it considers necessary to achieve broader community operational or strategic outcomes to vary or depart from the hierarchy of needs. We have heard a moment ago about other investments the Council may wish to make in other fields in the future, Scarborough North being one of them. If the Council chose that path, that would result in the temporary displacement of another Bayside club. And the question you need to ask yourselves is, when that work is taking place, where will that club go? And in answer to that question, Bicentennial East is one of the few facilities that is currently not preserved for the majority use of another club. We would encourage you towards a model that permits shared use that can honour the historic use of the ground by Rockdale Illingdon, but also permit the Council, either by handing management to FSG or Bayside, a measure of flexibility so that Rockdale is able to use the ground, but we also have some flex in the program so that other displaced clubs in the future have a place to go and spare you the possible contention of a club complaining to you or feeling a sense of consternation that it doesn't have a place to train when perhaps you'd prefer that they'd be thanking you for improving their ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Catino. There being no further registered speakers, I declare the public forum session this evening closed at 7:18 p.m. The Council meeting will now commence. Do we need to go offline and online, or we're all good? Excellent. This is a new process for us. Welcome, councillors, members of the public and staff. My name is Councillor Ed McDougall, Mayor of Bayside, and I declare this meeting of Bayside Council open at 7:18 p.m. Councillors and those present in the chamber are reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner, keep communication factual and use appropriate language and tone. Council meetings are live streamed and recorded via YouTube. Please therefore treat everyone with dignity, respect, and do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. Councillors are reminded of our obligations to conduct ourselves in a professional and respectful manner under the obligations of Council's Code of Meeting Practice in the interest of good governance and to adhere to meeting etiquette. All present are reminded that the YouTube video recording is an official record of Council and will be accessible via YouTube in accordance with the Code of Meeting Practice. No other recordings are permitted, and all present should ensure that there are no video recordings, audio recordings or photographs taken. In case of emergency, please follow the instructions of the Council staff, exit via the Town Hall floor and proceed to the evacuation point. I'd like to begin the Council meeting by acknowledging the Bidjigal clan, the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and work, and also acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. On behalf of Bayside Council, I pay my respect to their elders past, present and emerging. I now invite Reverend Colin Watts from Kensington East Lakes Anglican Church to open our meeting in prayer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. O Lord God, through your Son Jesus, you've revealed your servant heart and taught us that greatness is expressed through the service of others. So we thank you for our council members who have offered themselves in the service of our local community, and we pray that you might bless them in their endeavours. Grant them wisdom in their decision-making, fruitfulness in their discussions, and may they work together in harmony for the common good of the people of Bayside. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Watts. I've received no condolences this evening. Does any councillor have any condolences to put forward? Thank you, councillors. We have a number of certificates to present this evening, starting with a certificate of congratulations for Zyla Feenan. This evening, I'm very pleased to recognise Zyla for his recent achievement at the 2026 Australian Schools Boxing Championship held in Brisbane from 8 to 11 July. Zyla competed in the 65 kilogram division and was named the 2026 Youth National Champion. This is Zyla's third consecutive gold medal at the National Championships, making him a three-time Australian National Champion. This is a very significant achievement and reflects the commitment and training required to compete successfully at a national level. Zyla, on behalf of Bayside Council, congratulations on your achievement and best wishes for your future competitions. An incredible achievement and a great sport. I'd now like to invite Zyla to come forward and any interested councillors if you'd like to join us for a photo. Next up, we have a certificate of congratulations for the Shopfront Arts Co-op, who are celebrating their 50th anniversary. For the last 50 years, Shopfront has provided opportunities for young people to explore their creativity, develop their skills and participate in the performing arts. Reaching 50 years for an organisation of this sort, when arts organisations are under so much pressure, is an incredible milestone and really reflects Shopfront's long-standing contribution to young people and the arts within our local community. Particularly Shopfront as it's evolved into a co-op for young people. It's an absolutely amazing organisation. I'd like to invite Shopfront General Manager Sam Booth and Shopfront Young Leader Liv Sigaropoulos to please come forward and accept this certificate of congratulations from our council. And councillors, if you'd like to join us. Last but certainly not least,
Mr Mayor, could I add a supporting comment to that?
Very briefly, Councillor Saravinovsky.
No worries. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for accepting my nomination for this well-deserved community certificate. I genuinely believe Shopfront deserves to be celebrated for their incredible contribution that they made for over 5 decades. Not only as a regular, often attending with Councillor Barlow, we've been that many times, people confuse her as my grandma. So, Shopfronts and not only just myself being passionate about our local arts scene, every time I walk through those doors, I'm reminded how much talent and energy there has in the Bayside community. And Shopfront's been doing it since 1976, creating a place where young people can develop their confidence, creativity and leadership through arts. And the scale of that contribution is remarkable, as more than 2,500 young people and emerging artists engage with Shopfront each year. But Shopfront's more than just about putting on great shows. It supports our emerging artists, provides a rehearsal and creative development space, creating mentoring and employment opportunities that give our young people a genuine voice. So tonight, 50 years of history, community, creativity. Importantly, we're celebrating the future. So to the staff, the artists and the volunteers, thank you so much for putting in all that work, and here's to another 50 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Saravinovsky. Well said. Just our final acknowledgement this evening is for something that I think we're very proud of at Bayside Council. It's the 10th anniversary of Rockdale Library, And we'd like to take the opportunity tonight to recognise the advisory committee and the contribution of our staff to this incredible milestone and this great piece of public infrastructure. On Saturday, the 1st of August, the library celebrated its 10th anniversary, and it's certainly been recognised as one of the most valued community hubs, not just in Bayside but in southern Sydney. The construction of the Rockdale Library was one of the first major projects and marked the start of a significant program of works focusing on community and recreation facilities. Since opening its doors, this multi-award-winning library has welcomed more than 2.2 million visitors and delivered nearly 1,500 programs for people of all ages, from babies and young children through to seniors. Tonight, we are very pleased to recognise the former members of the Central Library Development Advisory Committee, together with the council staff who supported the committee for their contribution to the development of the Rockdale Library building. The advisory committee played an incredibly important role in the development of the building, providing input and advice as the project progressed, with the support of council staff who helped guide and deliver the project. This evening gives us an opportunity to acknowledge the collective contribution of those involved in bringing this important community facility to fruition. On behalf of Bayside Council, thank you so much again for your time, involvement and contribution to the development of our library. It is my pleasure to present each of you with a certificate of appreciation, and I think the General Manager will invite you forward one by one.
Thank you. Councillor Joel Wada. Former Councillor James McDonald. Lucy Smith. Anne Field. Former councillor of two different councils. Dr. John Barclay. Mikhail Chung. And to the staff, so we have former coordinator of the Library and Community Information Systems, Paula Fifa. And also our former Community Grants and Administration Officer and Committee Member, Denise Venn. Oh, she's not here, sorry. This is the last minute change.
Congratulations once again, and thank you again for all your work. I think the building next to us stands as a testament to the incredible job you did. Just before we begin the meeting, I'd like to just remind councillors of the unveiling of the Botany Aquatic Centre redevelopment project foundation stone. You'll be aware of the major redevelopment of a large public swimming pool that's undergoing and still on track and on budget, which we're very excited about given some of these recent projects across Sydney. Please join us on Friday the 28th of August to unveil this significant milestone. Move to apologies, leave of absence and attendance via audio-visual link. We've received apologies from Councillor Poulos. No other apologies. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Naji, seconded Councillor Awada. All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. We have Councillor Morrissey, Councillor Dusku and Councillor Kasim wishing to participate in the meeting via audio-visual link. Could I have a mover and a seconder to grant the councillor's request? Move Councillor Curry, seconded Councillor Brederhoft. All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. Do we have any disclosures of interest, councillors? Councillor Curry? Councillor Bezic? No. Councillor Bidelay? No. Councillor Strong? Councillor Brederhoft? Councillor Saravinovsky?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Item motion 13.4 and 13.5 to remain consistent on previous disclosures, non-significant, non-pecuniary, but I'll be abstaining from the chamber when the matter is discussed.
Councillor Saravinovsky, Councillor Naji, Councillor Wada, Councillor Barlow, Councillor Douglas.
Item 3.13, non-significant, non-pecuniary interest, because I know the speaker who spoke on that matter. And item 13.6, non-significant, non-pecuniary, because I work for advocating for rooftop solar and distributed energy resources solutions for cost of living.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Councillor Kasim. Councillor Morrissey.
No.
Councillor Fadusku.
No.
And myself, none. You minuted those. Minutes of the previous meeting. Can I ask two councillors who are present to move and second the confirmation of the minutes? Move Councillor Naji, seconded Councillor Bezic. All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. Have one mayoral minute this evening, acknowledging the 100th anniversary of the Arncliffe Scots Junior Rugby League Football Club. Unfortunately, the club representatives are unable to attend this evening, but I'm sure they'll join us at next month's council meeting for a certificate presentation. I'll take the minute as read, but an incredible part of St George's football history, and I think particularly as they've recently come back under the umbrella of St George Leagues Club. It's a fitting time to celebrate this incredible milestone and very exciting for the club. Are there any further speakers, councillors? Councillor Saravinovsky.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and also thank you again for accepting my nomination for it and bringing it down as a mayoral minute. Just briefly, as someone who grew up as a rugby kid, I know that a rugby club is more than just what happens on the field. It's about the friendships that you make, the coaches, the volunteers who give up their time to support the club, and the families on the sidelines, and the sense of belonging that comes from being a club. So that's why I'm really pleased to nominate Arncliffe Scots, to have a club, a local club, reach 100 years with incredible alumni that currently are playing in the rugby league right now. So, and it speaks to the generations of people who have given their time, energy and passion to keep the club going. Arncliffe Scots has always been a part of the fabric of our community for a century, giving young people the opportunity to play rugby, make lifelong friends and create memories that stay with them long after they leave the field. So on behalf of Bayside, congratulations to Arncliffe Scots, and here's to another 100. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saravinovsky. Any further discussion? No. All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. We'll now proceed to deal with the remainder of the business on the paper by exception. Councillors, the items read division is required for planning matters. Notice of motion and items where councillors have a pecuniary and or significant interest or wish to speak on a matter will be dealt with individually. Councillors, other than those, are there any other items you wish to pull out and deal with individually? Councillor Curry, Councillor Bezic, Councillor Boudelay, Councillor Strong.
Item 12.1, CPE 26019, the matter of the golf club redevelopment.
Yep. Councillor Brederhoft, Councillor Saravinovsky, no. Councillor Naji.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Item CWA 26.033 is from the committee.
Councillor Wada, Councillor Barlow. Councillor Douglas. Sorry, was there anything, Councillor Douglas? Councillor Kasim. Councillor Dusku. Councillors no. Councillor Morrissey?
No.
Myself, CPE 26.020. Are there any other items? All other items we've dealt with by one resolution. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Nargi, seconded Councillor Strong. All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. Now moving to the reports, we begin with item CPE 26.019, endorsement of draft submission on SSDA 844-67726 for concept and stage 1 works at the former Cogra Golf Club. Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think this is a pretty straightforward amendment, and we've agreed that Council will make a supplementary submission on the Cooks Cove proposal, and I commend the Council's stance on this development, what it said. What I'm asking tonight is we make one thing clear. In submission, we don't support putting a massive data centre at Cooks Cove. This isn't an argument against technology or the internet. It's not saying data centres don't have a role. It's about whether this is the right place for one. The local community is rightly concerned and agitated on this proposal. We saw a full house turnout at the Ironcliffe RSL recently, at the Sydney AI Data Centre Boom Community Forum, and some of the councillors, including myself, attended that. We hear a lot about artificial intelligence, but sometimes what seems to be missing is sustainable intelligence. If this technology is generally going to shape our future, then surely we have to be intelligent in how we build the infrastructure behind it, where we put it, how much energy and water it consumes, and what it does to our environment, whether the benefits and the burdens are shared fairly. An AI future that ignores future livability of our cities, our environment and basic social equity isn't particularly an intelligent future at all. When this proposal was originally talked about as logistics and warehouse precinct, we weren't talking about huge data centre with enormous electricity demand, water cooling requirements, backup generators, noise and a whole different set of infrastructure impacts. This is materially different land use, and I think it needs to be treated as one. Right beside the Cooks River is not a good place for such a place to be. Environmentally sensitive corridors, our community has spent decades trying to restore and improve. We should be thinking about biodiversity, public access, open space, better walking, cycling connections along our river. Meanwhile, across Sydney, we're seeing an extraordinary rush to build these data centres. I'm sure you've all heard about it on the media, driven by the AI boom. There are legitimate questions about where they go and how much water and power they consume and their cumulative impact. We shouldn't quietly allow data centres to appear as an alternative use at Cooks Cove, as though it's interchangeable as just a warehouse. My first preference is simple, that Council in its objections request to remove the data centre use from this proposal, and I've emailed my amendments. But if the state government keeps it there against Council and adjacent Bayside community wishes, and at very least the future data centre needs its own comprehensive assessment on energy, water, infrastructure, noise, environmental cumulative impacts on the Cooks River and surrounding community. So, yeah, I commend this amendment to councillors.
Councillor Strong. Further discussion, councillors. Councillor Bezic. Oh, sorry, seconded Councillor Bezic. Councillor Kassim.
Thank you very much. As the mover of this motion, I'm happy to accept this amendment to what I've done. And also just to note that the other two elements of the council's supplementary submission are ones which I have supported, I have proposed. I do think that this particular development at Cooks Cove is highly problematic. I would commend to any member of the public who hasn't yet read council's submission to do so. It's a detailed and very good submission. It's about 40 pages long, but it is very well worth reading. And it does make very useful criticisms of the Cooks Cove development as it stands. The supplementary, which will be done, will include currently, as you can see, something with regard to a land swap so that the land can be better utilised for the public. As well as something to do with utilising the tops of the warehouse building so that we can actually have more sporting facilities available. We heard tonight in the public forum how important that is. This third proposed amendment with regard to data centres, I think, does make a lot of sense. There is a lot of concern amongst our community about this. And while data centres may be useful for many things, this is not the right place for it.
Councillor Kassim. Further discussion. Councillor Douglas.
I've mentioned this to a few councillors, but I wanted to go into a little bit of detail tonight around the changing landscape of data centres. we can't just assume that we've got best practice at the moment. In fact, at the moment, in other jurisdictions overseas, they are looking at distributed data centres. So there's a company in the US, let me just find my notes, Sunrun, and it places data centres within people's home battery and meter boxes. They have 1.1 million customers across the United States, creating a distributed network of computing capacity rather than on one enormous site. So there is some types of data centres that require large amounts of computer chips in one area, but they're for the training of those data centres. But most of the processing that most of us would do if we're using AI, ChatGPT, doesn't need to be done in a large monolithic data centre. So the technology is changing, it's getting better, and I think it would be a travesty to lock up this amazing, unique waterfront site that we have in Bayside for a monolithic data centre when this technology will evolve quickly, is evolving quickly, and we can make better use of that site for recreational purposes, for public purposes. So I also support the amendment.
You councillors, further discussion? No, I think I'd just like to throw in a comment quickly. I mean, I think the broad brush of Councillor Strong's amendments that this should, you know, any future application needs to be subject to a development assessment. I mean, that has to happen regardless. But I think some of the furor around data centres, I don't think there's a lot lost that this power and energy, like the energy and the water resource and all of that, are being used where there's a distributed network as well. It's just not all in one place. And I'm not an expert on these things, but there's been a long history of consolidating these sort of uses and gaining efficiencies. So I think I'm a bit of a Philistine. I don't use AI, not because of any moral objection, just because of kind of technological competence. But lots of people do, and every time you're plugging in and sending a request off to the cloud, you're using computing power somewhere else. So I think the sort of general, I get that, and I appreciate Councillor Strong's words that this is about location for him, but I think the sort of some of the sentiment around this is really counterproductive. If people are going to use these sort of cloud computing services, then they need to operate somewhere, or you're just using up the power on site in a less efficient way. But with that being said, if there's no further discussion, councillors, all those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. Might deal with item CPE 26.020 at the end of the meeting in case it needs to go into confidential session. Item CWA 26.033, draft clothing bin policy. Moved Councillor Naji. Seconded Councillor Barlow. Councillor Naji. Sorry, I thought you pulled out. No? I'm missing something here. What, sorry? Yeah, I'll go back. Sorry, Councillor Nardi, maybe my mistake. I'm a bit out of it. But we do need to go back to item CP 26.018, the planning proposal to reclassify community land as operational land at 5A Waldron Street, Strandingham, as it's a planning matter. Do I have a mover and a seconder, councillors? Move Councillor Barlow, seconded Councillor Douglas. Are there any speakers? All those in favour by way of division? Councillor Curry, Councillor Bezic, Councillor Boudeleil, Councillor Strong, Councillor Brederhoft, Councillor Saranovsky, Councillor Naji, Councillor Wada, Councillor Barlow, Councillor Douglas, myself for Councillor Kassim, Councillor Morrissey, Councillor Dusku, Councillor Dusku, an abstention. Declare the motion carried. Item CWA 26. Oh, sorry, we don't have anyone on the talk about it. Item CP 26.034, tender outcomes, Victory Reserve Cogra. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Barlow, seconded Councillor Brederhoft. Councillor Barlow.
There's an addition, number 4, part 4, which is totally confusing because
for VP Douglas this year, including capital works program from 2027-28, and if necessary, using existing development contributions to be used to fund the works in the funds indicated in section 7.12 page supplement. The reason is that there was such a misunderstanding, they thought they were getting it all together, but the playground was voted for as in it was out of our bucket of renewals, but the dog park was part of the new. And the dog park was part of the new funding, and we didn't have that funding, so we've designed. I spoke to the general manager, and that's what we decided, we could do it so that you get them together. So that the resident that really they've been anxious to have this, and it wouldn't have appeared until we get this extra motion, part 4 in.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Any further discussion, councillors? Can I ask Mr. Barber, is this project in our? Can we actually borrow against our 7-Eleven contributions to fund this project? Is it already in our contributions plan?
Yes, we
Yeah,
can.
Yes, you can.
Super. Very good. No further discussion, councillors? All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. That's what I called out. So sorry, you wanted to talk about the clothing bin policy? Yeah. Not on my agenda. Item CWA 26.033, I wasn't imagining it, draft clothing bin policy. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Thank you,
Councillor
Mr. Mayor. I
Nargi.
just want to be
Seconded,
brief
Councillor Bezic.
and congratulate the Director of City Life with the help of the Director of City Presentation. This has been long coming about a policy, creating a policy, and again, I should recognise Mr. Hong, a great job. Now that we've got a policy, I just want to be assured how long before we go out for tender or expression of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Kang. The Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The committee asked for a little more detail about the location of the proposed clothing bin sites. So we've actually prepared that, and that'll be going to committee coming in early September. Once that's been done and endorsed, we'll be going out to an expression of interest for clothing bin operators. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dawson. Any further discussion? All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. Item 13.1, notice of motion urgent pedestrian safety, Princess Highway, Wallow Creek. Moved Councillor Boudelet, seconded Councillor Kassim, I think was on my screen, which I'm not good at looking at. Councillor Boudelet.
I'll be quick. I think everyone was aware of the accident that happened on Princess Highway at Wallow Creek on the 28th of July. For those that aren't aware, essentially a car drove into the pedestrian island there. This motion really is to do a couple of things. To note that Bayside Council has noted the safety concerns in this area for a number of years, has written to governments, both red and blue, for a number of years to get this fixed. This motion really calls for Transport New South Wales to conduct a review, which I understand will be the case. Obviously, there's a pending police investigation as well, so that needs to happen in order. It also calls for Transport New South Wales to look at certain interim measures, and by no means are we saying we know what the answer is, and the experts need to do the work there to find out what that could be. It then calls on Bayside Council to write to the government to again highlight this risk, but also to call for a specific end date to that review, just so we could get some resolution. It also recognises the work that Bayside Council has done and is doing around the Wallow Creek traffic study. And I think it might do one other thing, but this is obviously really critical to the people in Wallow Creek. There has been a petition that's been run with over 500 signatures. People are really disturbed by what happened on the 28th of July. but hopefully we can get some good kind of bipartisan support here to find a resolution. And noting, obviously, we have called for things like overpasses in the past, underpasses, noting those are longer term projects. Hopefully we can come together and do something in the interim to secure pedestrian safety in the area. Thank you.
Councillor Bidelay, further discussion? Councillor Douglas.
I fully support this motion. I actually passed by the site of the accident shortly afterwards and it was awful. And I've had lots of residents contact me who are too scared to cross at that crossing now, which is a massive issue. I did have a question with the motion that it does mention the underpass on point 2. I just wanted to ask through the chair, is that the underpass that Councillor Strong proposed that goes under the bridge, or is that a new underpass parallel underneath where the current crossing is, and is that possible?
I think there's a question to you, Councillor Bidelay.
Oh, sorry, that was, in reference to, I think, the motion that you had or Councillor Strong had previously passed in terms of an underpass. And sorry, that was a very general reference to what that could look like. But that is more a reference to there have been proposed options put to council. I guess what we're asking for is something in the interim, but also to look at something more longer term, whether it is that or an overpass of some sort, something needs to be done. So yes, that was a general reference to the previous motion.
Just in response to that, I actually think that it would be great if council could consider an underpass where the current traffic island is, because I know from our discussion at committee that site of Coles looks to be a place for renewal. Woolworths, sorry. And so, yeah, it would be great if council could actually specifically look at that, because I've heard a lot of bad things about overpasses, that they actually are not very accessible to most people, but underpasses, I believe, at least from using the ones around the Sydney train station, are very popular. So I wonder if we could look at an option for a couple of different sites for an underpass there. If we could amend that to say pedestrian crossing and sites for different sites for underpasses.
You've got a Mascot station, for example.
Yes, that's right. You do. Yes, thank you.
Further discussion, Councillor Naji.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just for the record, I think it's a notice of motion moved by Councillor Bidelay and seconded by Councillor Kassim. Just to be corrected on the record, just a friendly... Yeah, now it's right, thank you. Just a reminder to councillors that went on this council going back maybe 2008, that I did put a notice of motion when there was a pedestrian that got killed, sadly, a tragedy. And it was then investigated that an overpass is the way to do it due to funding, because if you go underpass, it's going to cost a lot more money. So it's all about costing as well to try and achieve something. So an overpass, it's not only in Australia. I've seen it at Kirrawee. It's a great overpass. I've seen it around the world in Dubai and others where you have a lift or an escalator going up, going across to the other side. And safety is paramount, and that's been ongoing. And the only thing we could do is keep putting pressure with our blue or red government in place to try and achieve this safety issue. So, I mean, I'm not an expert, but that's what I believe, that if you go underground, it's going to cost maybe, I'm not an expert again, but it could be a triple or more of the funding. So I know that the whole idea is to get pedestrians to the other side in a safe manner. Thank you.
Councillor Naji, further discussion?
Yes.
Councillor Kassim, I think, was next, and then Councillor Barlow.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think it's very clear from the discussions tonight that this is indeed, bipartisan or tripartisan, however one wants to call it. This is a sort of universally supported by many people on council and has been for some time. I do, also want to acknowledge the work of Councillor Anne Fardell, my predecessor on the Labor side, who did initiate the discussions for the Mascot traffic study as well. Just to take up what Councillor Boudeleau said, there are some important ideas in that which also require Department of Transport decision-making, particularly with regard to traffic lights, which might be useful to help the flow of traffic going in and out of Walleye Creek, which is pretty horrendous at peak hour. That whole area does have major traffic problems for everybody, and to have the added issue of safety is obviously disturbing for everyone. Yes, I certainly commend this motion, recognising that the long-term issues are unfortunately quite long-term, because they do, they will involve the development probably of that Woolworths site, and we don't know what the time frame would be in that. It would be difficult probably to do something without that, just to have the runway necessary. But yes, I commend it, and thank you everyone for the pretty universal support on this front.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow.
It's just to make the comment at the Transport Forum that the residents, we've tried to make the residents aware that we are trying our hardest to try and get something there. The Roads Minister maybe should come down or whatever, but the whole thing was that nothing can be done until the police investigation's been finished. They can look at it, but they can't assume anything, they can't put anything forward. And so that is the reason that it might take a little bit longer, but we're aware, Transport's aware, the police were at the meeting, everyone's aware. It's just a matter of a timing thing, and hopefully it's sooner than later.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Any further discussion, councillors? No, just a comment. I think just on the discussion about overpasses and underpasses previously, I think it's worth looking at all of these things. And I'd offer my personal view that I think people really don't use overpasses. You'd be looking at building something similar to the one at Brighton or Sands. It would be fantastic to have something with lifts and escalators and all that sort of thing. But whether we realistically would get something like that when we're advocating for anything. I think the challenge in Sydney around underpasses is that as we build our services, I mean, I'm sure one of our hardworking council staff members knows a lot more about this than I do, but our services basically sit directly below street level. So in order to build this sort of thing, you actually have to dig quite deep, which makes it massively costly. But I think we should be looking at whatever options we can. I think the mention of a grade separated pedestrian crossing, the whole intersection could be a lot better. It's pretty rudimentary for something that thousands and thousands of people cross every day. With high volumes of traffic, so anything that we can do to improve that, I think, would be fantastic. Any further discussion, councillors? All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. Item 13.2, notice of motion, Chatty Cafes and Community Connection. Move Councillor Strong. Do I have a seconder? Second, Councillor Douglas. Councillor Strong.
From ChatGPT to Chatty Cafes. This is a pretty simple motion about something that we might not do, go into public spaces so much as talking to each other. The idea of Chatty Cafes started in the UK, is now spreading around Australia. A cafe, library, community space has a clearly marked table where you can go and sit, and I'm happy to have a chat on that, or in Australian language, come over and have a yarn. We've probably gone to the cafe by ourselves, ordered coffee, put out the phone and started doom scrolling, and sometimes, you want to do that, but sometimes maybe you want to talk to someone. They have a chat table, removes that awkwardness, where the space to sit is, and then you can join a conversation if you want to. Could be like an older resident that lives alone that wants to do this, somebody new to Bayside, a young person, a parent with a baby, or just someone who feels like a bit of company that day. Other Australian councils have supported similar initiatives, so it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. And importantly, this motion isn't committing council to any new expenditure program. It's just asking staff to investigate something like this, if it could work in Bayside for our libraries, community facilities, a partnership with interested local cafes and businesses. So we're a wonderful, diverse community, and sometimes creating community can be as simple as just providing permission for two strangers to say hello. So rather than another half an hour staring at the phone, maybe we can make it easier for people in Bayside to put it down, have a yarn, and get to know someone they might not have met.
Thank you, Councillor Strong. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Councillor Douglas. Councillor Kasim, I think, was first.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you. And thank you to Councillor Strong for proposing this. It's actually, I would have gladly seconded it myself probably if I was in the chamber. Because I very strongly support anything which has to do with improving social cohesion and communication generally. I guess the only comment I might make is follows on from what the General Manager's comment was about ensuring that that this is done in a way that people don't feel like it's somehow a strange sort of group of people who just want to do this. In other words, I feel like there is actually, it should be part really of a wider, almost public information campaign around it being okay to talk to each other. I know some people may not be able to remember this, but there were days when people used to be able to sit down in buses and trains and just talk to the person sitting next to them. And it wasn't considered strange at all. Somehow, this sort of basic community connection has become more unusual, or people do consider it a bit strange. So I think, if we can sort of think more broadly about how we can essentially make this more of the norm than the exception is my only concern. Basically not implying that by setting up a chatty cafe, we are implying that, one shouldn't chat anywhere else as well. That's my only concern. But other than that, I certainly support the intention behind this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Kasim. Councillor Douglas.
I just wanted to attempt to value add a little bit on your motion, because I had a resident, Mark, sent me a photo of a bench in Lane Cove. It's not their chatty bench, it's a different bench, but it's a bench made out of solar panels. And it has a double use, because women can, we've heard this before, that young women like to be able to charge their phones before they get on a bus as a safety thing. So it enables also, you could do free charging of your phone in a public place. So I love the idea of maybe combining a few of these things to have a few chatty benches around Bayside that also provide that safety net as well for our younger women. I know my son has a buddy bench at his school for lonely kids when they want friends, and that's been very successful, and they have named that buddy bench after a student that died. So it's got a whole lot of meaning to the local community, and I think there's a lot of lovely layers that we could add into this initiative.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Any further discussion, councillors? No. All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. Item 13.3, notice of motion, Rockdale, Banksia and Carlton to Bexley North Active Transport Corridor. Moved Councillor Brederhoft, seconded Councillor Douglas. Councillor Brederhoft.
Thank you. As we heard today, this is to connect the east and the west, and to connect the east west with the north-south cycleways that we have, the M6 corridor and the M5 corridor. We've been talking to residents, and I've been overwhelmed with the support for this, and the support from people I usually don't hear much voice, and this is actually an accessibility thing. One father wrote about his son who will likely never drive a car, but for his family this is a lifestyle, because what he will be able to do is to safely ride on a bike. Another family also wrote to me that elderly people, they're not able to walk that much anymore. They don't want to drive their car. Sometimes they're not allowed to drive their car anymore, but they can ride a bike because it's good for their knees and other things. So with many schools and as well in the catchment, to connect this really can mean we're taking the traffic off the roads, which we so often see in traffic, hour of traffic, school drop-off and school pickup. However, I was very happy with the General Manager's amendment to say that this should be part of the 27-28 operational plan, but I would like to take out the word for consideration, but it should definitely be part of it. And also, what I think is that Council starts the work now because there's a federal government active transport fund in the moment, and we should be ready to apply for that grant because there's 500 million over 10 years annually. So this is a perfect opportunity, I think, to apply for this.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to put a foreshadowed motion on that, and I've sent it through to this staff.
Can we scroll down, please? Thank you. I've read that. And seconded, Councillor Barlow.
If I could just quickly speak to that, Mr. Mayor. Look,
Ryder.
thank you. Look, my motion doesn't oppose active transport or the proposed corridor. In fact, it recognises that route has merit and is already contemplated by council bike plan. So I think it's just the wording. This doesn't sort of take away from Councillor Brederhoff the intention, which is good, and I want to thank all those that have written to myself, and I think other fourth ward councillors, including Councillor Barlow. I have read all the emails, but definitely this motion does not oppose the motion that's put, but the wording, the concern, my motion also, it does avoid direct staff to commence on another substantial investigation when the GM has specifically advised there is no capacity this financial year. So we're still addressing that issue there. Now, if you read the original motion in 1B, investigate a spur route from Rockdale Station to Bardwell Park Golf Club via Lindham Hall and Bardwell Valley Parkland. Now, the original wording, which is I have a problem with, it does, the motion specifically direct officers to investigate that route. We need to basically leave it that. So with number 3, I've actually taken that exactly from the GM's comment. So that's directly cut and pasted from the GM's comment. So really it doesn't take away of your motion, but it's actually different wording. And when you consider, when you put this motion together, we didn't have the information about the map and everything that's provided, followed by that motion. So reading what's been submitted in that map, that's already work being taken, and I don't want to sort of have our staff do the overlap or duplicate the work, because the motion as it stands now, it says to prepare plan to ensure that route connects different destinations. So that's being too specific, where here we're given an opportunity for the EW6 as outlined in the bike plan 2024 to take its route and similar route to it.
Thank you.
That's it.
Councillor Awada. Can I just say, I think that based on Councillor Brederhoff's speaking points, we're all in furious agreement that we should prioritise route EW6 for inclusion in next year's operational plan, which I think Councillor Awada's motion does.
Can I just say, EW6 in the moment, as it's on there in the Bayside Priority Cycle Network, doesn't actually outline which streets it is, right? So the idea that, and where it goes, it's just a green line through.
Yeah, you work out the route.
You work out the route. So the ask
design
that we have put forward in my motion is to work out the route, and we've given some ideas on what the route could be in the map, because this comes directly from people who are riding those places every day and every weekend. So this is what my motion does, nothing more. So I think I don't quite understand what the difference is between the foreshadowed motion and my motion, to be honest.
I think if you're adding an additional point, we end up at the same outcome, which is that we're
Yeah, then we
We're
can proceed
progressing
with my
this.
motion and we, can't we, or is it?
I think you need to edit your motion to incorporate the key point of Councillor White's motion to do that, or the General Manager's comment, as you said. And the key action point is that the feasibility assessment of priority route EW6 is outlined in the Bayside Bike Plan 2024 or similar route connecting Bexley North with Carlton, Banksia and Rockdale stations be included as a project in the draft operational plan 2027-2028 for consideration by
Yes,
Council.
which I said in my
So you
words,
wanna-
I'm happy to
you wanna
accept.
incorporate that?
Except that the consideration by council, I would, for consideration sounds like, sounds like we're going to discuss it again.
We have to do that because you
Okay.
can't bind
Yeah.
the council's next vote.
Yeah, I'm happy to change the, adapt the point 2 that
I
the
think you're
general
replacing
manager
point 2 with
proposed.
that.
Yeah.
Further discussion, councillors? Yeah. So if you look at the General Manager's comment, which is effectively what's broadly being tried to achieve by Councillor Brederhoff's notice of motion is a east-west cycle link linking the stations, which is, as Councillor Awada's foreshadowed motion makes that very explicit, but Councillor Brederhoff said she'll accept that rather than her existing point 2. So rather than proceeding with with a study based on what was identified in the notice of motion, it'll more closely link with the work already being done around the route in Bayside Council's bike plan.
Could I
Councillor
just
Douglas?
make a suggestion that point 2 actually talks about informing consultation with the Walking and Cycling Forum? So I think there's parts of that point 2 that would be lost, would be a big loss. So maybe it's combining the words in point 2 with Councillor White's motion, so that we at least keep the part of the sentence that says informed by consultation with the Walking and Cycling Forum and other key stakeholders, because that's the whole point of the Walking and Cycling Forum, is to be engaged and to provide advice from people who are users.
Seems very sensible, and I'd hope we'd do that as part of any walking and cycling thing that we're doing, because we have a walking and cycling forum. Can I say, are we happy to sort of combine these two motions? Because I think we actually have agreement about what we want to do. So I think what we have is the second point 2, which is the wording Councillor Awada identified, and then perhaps another sentence that said this should be informed by consultation with the Walking and Cycling Forum and other key stakeholders. That we prepare a plan, but it's now just referring back to the EW6 cycle route and prioritising that for 27, 28. Any further discussion, councillors?
Can I just make a comment?
Councillor Barlow.
It was very detailed and listed all the streets. There's some flaws in it that can't be done, but that's beside the point. And I do know the area extremely well, and I feel that there was comments, we all got a lot of emails, and there was a lot of talk about pedestrians and safe pedestrians. Well, I do know they know when I've been walking somewhere because of all the trip hazards I send in. But there was a couple of emails we got, and listed people that were a pedestrian that was killed in Bexley. It was his fatal decision to cross, not at the pedestrian crossing, but up further, which a lot of people do. They walk between the traffic. He was the 84-year-old man. There was a guy in John Street and Preddy's Road created by a person that flew round the corner, and very sadly he passed away as well. So there's issues there with pedestrians, but it is hard to... you want safe walking. Well, I think we have some beautiful footpaths that are wide. We've got wide grass verges, so we do have a lot of safe walking. So I feel that the map that was given out, which has been... there is sort of changes there, and I feel that can be looked at, but there's certain areas that... Seaforth Park, it is a heritage item. You just can't put a bike path through the middle of it. You're not allowed to put a lot of things in a lot of the areas. So, I mean, it'd be interesting. I read it all, and I thought it was quite interesting to see it all, and I feel that if the motion goes through the way it is, there's plenty more time to talk about it, not just have something thrown at us.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Any further discussions? All those in favour? All those against? Declare it carried. Item 13.4, notice of motion completing the works at the field at Scarborough Park North. Move Councillor Naji. Seconded, sorry, just wait for Councillor Saranovsky to leave. Move Councillor Naji. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Boudeleil. Councillor Naji.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Before I move this up, before I go any further, can we scroll up a bit? I'd like to... No, down, sorry. Okay, I want to take out the refield on irrigation and drainage on the refield, if I could take that out. Delete number 2, sorry, delete number 2 and delete number 3 for now. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll move this motion for a simple reason. At Scarborough Park North, we have started a job and we have not finished it. And the clubs who use those fields are the ones carrying the cost of that. So before I deleted, so before I go to the substance, I want to deal with the amendment which I did, because I'd rather explain it than have it explained for me. My motion originally sought works on the refield as well. I have moved to take the refield out. It sits within an environmental protection area, and I'm not going to ask this council to commit to drainage and turf works in a place where the environment constraints haven't been properly worked through. Scarborough Park is a wetland environment. That is part of what makes it worth having. And it's not something we get to treat as an inconvenience because it complicates a sporting field. So what is in front of you tonight is a narrower, and I think it is better for it, drainage on the main field and the mini field, nothing in the environment protection area. Let's be clear about the ground actually stands, where the ground actually stands. Council has delivered irrigation, re-levelling and returfing on the main field and the mini field, along with seedings, footpaths and a drinking fountain. That's genuinely good work, and I thank the staff for it. But the grand scope stopped where the problem starts. We have put in irrigation without putting in drainage. Mr Mayor, you can water the field all you like. If the water has nowhere to go, you haven't fixed the problem. You haven't fixed the field. You've just changed who's holding the hose. The flooding at Scarborough Park North is not a turf problem. It is a drainage problem. Every winter, those fields go under. Every winter, training gets cancelled, and every winter, the clubs are told to wait another year. The motion now asks for one thing: drainage. And the main field, and on the main field and the mini field. Done in consultation with Scots FC, who are the custodians of that ground and who know its wet corners better than any other consultants will. I've read the General Manager's report comment, and I take the point that there is a genuine opportunity here. The existing stormwater pipe is scheduled for renewal in 2027-28. Doing drainage at the same time as that renewal is the sensible, cheaper, once only way to do it. Dig the ground up once, not twice. The General Manager has said the project can be included in the draft capital project works for 2027-28. So let's take this opportunity rather than let it drift. What I'm asking Council to do tonight is to give the direction now so the scope is on the table when that pipe renewal is being planned. And so the clubs have an answer instead of another year of it's being considered. We have already spent public money on those two fields. Draining them protects that investment. Leaving them half done wastes it. And with the refield out, this is a modest, contained piece of work on ground Council has already improved. No environmental question, mark over any part of it. I commend this motion to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Naji. Further discussion? Councillor Douglas.
So I just wanted to be clear, so what the proposal is, Councillor Naji is proposing is for the inclusion of this project in the draft CPP for 27-28. Maybe we can make that explicit, because we've already committed the budget for this year. If you could have that as an amendment, Councillor
It is, I
Naji.
think the GM mentions the
It's in the GM's comments,
27, 20,
Yeah.
28.
I think rather than the word build, it said that it should be the project be included in the draft CPP for 27-28,
Yep.
which will be the effect of the motion regardless. Happy with that. Any further discussion, councillors? All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. Item 13.5, notice of motion, Rockdale Illingdon using Bicentennial Park East for training. Move Councillor Naji. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Bezic. Councillor Naji.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I want to start by being precise about what this motion does and does not ask for, because I suspect some of the concerns in the chamber tonight are about a motion I haven't moved. This motion does not hand Bicentennial Park East to one club. It does not grant exclusive use, it does not touch weekends, and it does not touch game day, and it does not lock anybody out. It asks the General Manager to commence discussions with Rockdale Illingdon about a licence for weekdays training only, commencing at the start of the 2027 season. Discussions, that is the ask. Only discussions, Mr Mayor. Now, why this club and why this ground? Before the M6 work, Rockdale Illingdon were the users of that field. They held a 21-year sub-licence from council, and they had 10 years left to run on it when they were asked to surrender it so a state motorway project could proceed. They didn't fight it, they handed it back. And in all the years they held it, that ground was not fenced off from the community. Schools used it, other users had frequent access. Illingdon were there for game day and for training, and the rest of the time the park did what parks do. So this is not a club asking for something new. It is a club asking for a share of what it gave up on weekends 10 years earlier than its own licence would have expired. I've read the General Manager's comment and I want to address it directly and fairly. Bicentennial East was set up as a shared community facility, and it has done a real job accommodating displaced clubs, Arncliffe Scots among them. I support that. I'm not asking council to walk away from shared use. Weekday training is entirely compatible with a shared use facility. And if the discussions show it isn't, then staff will come back and tell us so. It is also noted that Rockdale Illingdon hold licences elsewhere. Mr Mayor, every councillor in this chamber knows the real position. A demand for training space across Bayside outstrips supply. Our grounds are being rested and renewed, and clubs are juggling. A club holding a licence somewhere is not evidence they have enough field time. It is evidence they've been looking for it. All this motion does is open a conversation on the record with a timeline attached, the 2027 season. So it doesn't sit in a drawer. If the discussions produce a workable arrangement, council sees it. If they don't, council loses nothing. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Naji. Further discussion?
Question?
Sorry, I think Councillor Barlow first, then Councillor Kassim.
My question is it's not Memorial playing there?
No, it's the old Scarborough East where the current, the M6 mouth is. Councillor Kassim.
Yeah, thank you very much. I guess I'm just wondering just if a little bit of clarification might be available to comments made earlier in the public forum. In particular, a mention was made of an offer having been made for a partial licence, and I don't know what that covers, whether that it may be possible to have, not the whole facility or whether there's some compromise available there, only because of the comments made by the St George Football Federation about the usefulness for other clubs. We've just had the discussion there about, potentially putting in drainage, etc., for Unclear Scots in next financial year. We've had other discussions earlier in the year regarding potential synthetic fields for Pagewood and potentially Mascot even. Whether or not they might need this at some later point. So that is my only concern. Is there any flexibility, and what does a partial license? What might a partial license look like?
I think that would be worked through in any negotiations, as Councillor Naji outlined in this, Councillor Sim.
Okay, fantastic. All right, great. Thank you.
Further discussion, councillors. Councillor Brederhoft, then I'd like to say a few words.
Yeah, I just don't understand really. So what is the advantage of a license for the club? If they can use it already anytime because it's not restricted, it's council allocation. So what would change if they would get a license? Is maybe
to respond to that, Ms Dawson.
Through you, Mr Mayor. A licence creates certainty of booking, whereas being on the bookable permit system means that you have to compete for the use of the field with other clubs.
Thank you, Ms Dawson. Councillor Brederhoft.
And currently, is there a lot of competition over this particular field?
The field is being used by other clubs, and it's also being used, as we've heard, as a displacement field for clubs where their own fields are being upgraded or are out of use for whatever reason. So yes, there is a bit of competition. A partial licence is not something that we've ever done before. It would be a booking system permit that would be the appropriate mechanism.
You can. Anything further, Councillor Brederhoft? Anything further? No. Look, I'd just like to make a comment, and I'm happy to support Councillor Naji's motion. I fully respect the position of Football St George, but I would like to make a comment back to the history of this site. As was mentioned, Rockdale Illingdon had 10 years to run on a licence, which is based on their historical displacement from Barton Park, which goes, Old Riverine Park, which goes well back beyond when I was on council. But going to when the F6 was being implemented and post the West Connects and everything, I think it's important to acknowledge that as part of those discussions with the state government at the time, and I believe then Minister Andrew Constance, what Rockdale Illingdon in being displaced and giving up their licence were part of a concerted effort to push for the, effectively, I think, the very significant legacy which should be acknowledged across the F6 corridor. So the works getting delivered by Transport for New South Wales of J. Graham, of Ador Avenue, of Memorial Park, outside the football community, but there are many people who enjoy the skate park at Gajaga Park. Rockdale Illingdon really put the shoulder into that and delivered a legacy which I think is really impressive for football across our community, and I do think that is important to acknowledge. So, I'd be the first to say we don't have enough football fields. We need to keep investing in these facilities. We need to keep building up drainage. We need to keep putting in lighting to make sure that we can use these assets because people love football. the numbers speak for themselves. But I think in this case there is consideration that needs to be given. They're in a particular circumstance where they were they gave up property rights that they had, and as part of that supported a wider outcome for football across St George. So I do think that is worth acknowledging, and that the council should engage in these negotiations as per Councillor Nagi's motion. Any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Nagy, right of reply. Oh, sorry, Councillor Douglas.
No, I was more a question based on St George's FC's speech, which was around, do we have any other places for other displaced football clubs to use other than this field? Or will we then be trying to fill a gap somewhere else?
We're always trying to fill gaps, but the General Manager can answer that as well.
Through the Mayor, for us to create an excess field, one that wasn't allocated, I think the opportunities that we have in Bayside probably revolve around what we could do at Riverine with the remaining area there. That's obviously, it would need work and it would need council to design and invest in that, but that is quite a unique opportunity that we have, that we could do something down at Riverine.
Yeah, we are putting that on the agenda, which I think is a very important project.
That's not, sorry, and it's football St George, not St George FC, but that's not an immediate answer, is it? So I guess my question is, do we have the evidence that Rockdale really need this? And what happens, do we have the evidence that the other clubs really need it? And how do we balance those things out? Because we're only hearing speeches tonight. We haven't been presented with a proper report on this to make a decision, and I certainly don't feel equipped to make a decision tonight without a bit more evidence on all sides.
Yeah, I think that's a fair argument. Councillor Nagy, right of reply.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I can't agree with you more. They had 10 years, the points I'm going to go through, the club Rockdale Illingdon had 10 years. 10 years to go, and they surrendered it because they had to, because of the building of the M6. That's one. Number two, we're just asking that the mayor and the club to have discussions and see how they could help this club out in the training during weekdays. And with all respect with St George Football Association, which I have the biggest admiration and the biggest respect for them, we need to work with council, and council could bring some of the stakeholders. And I'll give you some examples. They're only my opinion. Is to bring in Arncliffe, Aurora Club, which they have Arncliffe Park, and now, I don't know if any other councillors have been, I know Councillor Strong was there, Riverine Park. What an achievement. They call it the Taj Mahal of football now. What an achievement on 2 fields. And I'm sure if this council talks to Arncliffe Aurora, they can help out with some training for other clubs. In a matter of fact, they already do. They already do. You see them in Arncliffe Park, and they allocate for other teams from out of the area to play their games, whether some training. And also in Riverine Park, there's field 5 and 6. And that's another issue that we can discuss in the future. Other clubs are willing to inject big investments to fix those 2 grounds, and guess what? To support every other club in the area. It's not just for that particular club or whatever. So we have opportunities to create fields that can cater for the shortage, for the desperate needs of certain fields for the clubs. The only thing that I could see that talking about Scarborough North, that should be worked at in the off-season and the 2027-28, so they are not short of a playing field or a training field. The only thing that I see is Bexley North. If it comes up for that synthetic, they need somewhere to play, and I'm sure between Arncliffe, Aurora Club, which has Arncliffe Park, Riverine Park, and hopefully soon we'll sort out field 5 and 6, and I think the shortage of playing fields will be solved. That's in my opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Naji, put to vote. All those in favour? All those against? Declare it carried. Item 13.6, notice of motion solar on council buildings. Moved Councillor Douglas, seconded Councillor Strong. Councillor Douglas. Sure.
I can quote talking. Okay.
Sorry, can we invite Councillor Savranovsky back in as well, please? Governance on the way out. Let's give him a minute to come back.
So, one of the main things we manage as council is our council budget. And many of us, including many community members, come to us with ways council should spend money. I'll just wait for Councillor Savranovsky to finish doing
Thanks.
his
Can we
review.
take the discussion outside the council chambers? Thank you. And grab the door, thanks. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. So one of the main things as councillors we do is manage the council budget. And many of us, including many community members, come to the council with ways to spend money. We have a $200 million budget roughly per year, but we also have deficit around some of the upgrades and renewals that we need to do. And we have budget gaps. And we always have more things we want to spend money on than we actually have. So one of the things we talked about in the January workshop that we had as a council was innovative ways to get council to make money. And I felt like there was a gauntlet thrown down. How do we come up with ways to make this council make money? Other councils might have an airport that they lease out, Newcastle Council. They also have a tip that makes them a huge amount of money.
I think they lose money on the area. Sorry to interrupt.
They do. Okay, well, you know more about that, but other councils have other ways of making money. So, and like most of you, I wear two hats. I have a day job and a night job. My night job is Wednesday nights at council and reading business papers at night. My day job is as a CEO of an advocacy organisation specialising in renewable energy. So I am watching this space, and I felt like it was time to bring those two things together. But I have to disclose the conflicts of interest for this motion because I won't be making any money out of this. I advocate for the technology because I think it's good technology and it can save council and the residents money. So I think council could have a lot to gain from this motion, and basically what it is asking council to take advantage of really great changes that have been announced by the federal government to increase the small-scale renewable energy certificate, to increase the ceiling of it from 100 kilowatt hours to 1 megawatt. So what does that mean? There's a lot of acronym there. Basically, the reason Australia has such great rooftop solar boom and also now battery boom is because we have a rebate, the small-scale renewable energy scheme, that has been really successful. It has allowed customers to want to make that investment in those technologies. And we are the world leaders in rooftop solar and the world leaders in battery uptake as well, globally. What this legislative change, policy change that has been enacted by the federal government will mean is that big roofs, so bigger than a house, a public building, a library, a supermarket, a commercial and industrial building will be incentivised to get rooftop solar. And the reason that that is good news for council is we have a lot of big roofs. And we do already have some roofs with solar on them. We have 11 council facilities with rooftop solar, and applications are being made, and they're looking at ones at Botany Aquatic Centre, for instance, which I was encouraged to see through the General Manager's comments. But what this council motion is basically asking is that we ask a business to go out and look at all our council roofs. And it won't be staff that have to do that work. There'll be commercial entities clamouring for council business. Go out and have a look at all the big roofs that council has and make an assessment of what's possible to put rooftop solar and batteries on our council buildings, how much money could we make out of that as a council, and how much clean energy can we provide at a cheaper rate than what's going with the rest of the power. Rooftop solar is the cheapest form of energy. It's much cheaper than coal and gas. That will provide cheap, clean energy, abundant energy to our community, but it will also provide an income to council, which we can then spend on facilities for our community. We already have a power purchase agreement for 100% renewable energy, which is generated off-site, and that's great. It's great that we're a council that has 100% renewable energy, but what's better is being
carbon positive, is actually being able to not just be carbon negative. We actually can create this cheap, clean energy locally for our community and export it to our neighbours, to our residents. And it also has a bunch of other benefits. When you create energy on the roof, you then don't need all the large transmission lines from regional areas, from remote coal and gas power plants. That transmission line, those transmission lines are about 50% of your energy bill. So by reducing the need to transmit power from remote locations, we're actually reducing half of our energy bills. So we don't have to upgrade that transmission. It also means that council buildings can become resilience hubs. So with islanding effect, which basically means that if there's a blackout, that council building continues to have air conditioning, lighting, we can have resilience hubs in climate emergencies. This could potentially be a really big win-win for our community. So this is simply asking for council to do an investigation, go out and get 3 tenders, see what's possible in terms of upgrading solar and batteries on our council buildings.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Any further discussion?
Yep.
Councillor Strong.
I strongly support this motion. Yeah, climate action can't just remain just a collection of targets and strategies. This is really important and achievable. This is infrastructure that people could see across our city, actually see it happening. Council rooftops, they should be generating renewable energy where they're practical, backed by batteries and potentially connected through virtual power plants. They're VPPs, they link solar and batteries so they work together and they can share and supply to demand when needed. So yeah, the technology is really, really great and it's emerging, and I think it would be a great thing for council to investigate.
Councillor Naji.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say at the outset that I'm not going to stand here and argue against solar panels on council buildings. I support them. This council supports them. That isn't the question in front of us tonight. The question is whether we need to resolve to commission a 7-part report to find out things that our general manager has just finished telling us all in writing. Mr. Mayor, I'd ask councillors to turn to the general manager's comment on this item at page 98 of tonight's agenda. It is one of the more complete answers I have seen attached to a notice of motion. And I want to take a moment on it because what it actually contains is a quiet account of a job very well done by our staff. It tells us council already has solar installed across 11 council facilities, generating an estimated over 500,000 kilowatts hours a year. It tells us battery storage is already installed at 3 sites. It tells us council already has a clear approach, continuing to expand solar and battery at our high-use facilities, and that the priority projects are already identified: the Botany Bay, the Botany Aquatic Centre, and the expansion of solar at the Green Street Depot. It tells us there is already a site selection method in place: high electricity consumption, strong daytime demand, stable year-round usage, and enough roof capacity to make the investment worth making. Mr. Mayor, that is a considered professional assessment framework, and it's precisely the assessment framework this motion asks council to go away and develop. And Mr. Mayor, this is the part I would particularly commend to the chamber. The central argument of this motion is urgency, that the SRES window is closing and council must move before it does. The General Manager tells us that an application for SRES funding for the Green Street Depot expansion has already commenced. So we are not missing the window, we are already through it. Our staff, that opportunity, understood the scheme and lodged for it. And they did without needing a resolution of this council to tell them to. I think that deserves to be said out loud, Mr Mayor, and I'd say it with genuine admiration that this initiative that is officers who know their portfolio and act on it. And then there is the line I would ask every councillor in this chamber to sit with. It's on page 98 in the General Manager's own words. Currently, all council buildings and operations use 100% renewable electricity. 100%, Mr Mayor. That's today, not a target, not an aspiration for 2030. The position is right now. Mr Mayor, there are councils across this state that would give a great deal to be able to write that sentence about themselves. Our staff have delivered it. I want to congratulate the sustainability and facility teams for that. And I would encourage every councillor here to do the same, because achievements like that tend to pass through this chamber without anybody stopping to acknowledge them. Now, I don't raise any of this to say the job is finished. There is a real difference between purchasing renewable electricity and generating it ourselves. And I accept that distinction entirely. But it does change the character of this debate. This is not a council that has been asleep on renewable energy and needs to be woken up by a resolution of this chamber. This is a council with a strategy, with priority sites, with an application already lodged, and with a fully renewable electricity supply. I'd also point to the last thing the General Manager tells us. If this motion passes, a detailed committee report and presentation gets scheduled. And if additional expertise or funding is required, it goes into the 2027-28 draft operational plan. So the honest accounting tonight is this. We would be directing staff time and potentially ratepayers' money in a future budget to produce documents about a program those same staff are already running well. I would rather that time and that money went into panels themselves. Mr Mayor, I have a real respect for the intent behind this motion, and Councillor Douglas brings more knowledge of this subject than most of us in this room can claim. But I take the General Manager's comment seriously, and I take our staff's work seriously. The strategy exists, the priorities are set, the application is in, the supply is at 100%. When our people are already delivering and delivering well, the most useful thing this chamber can do is beg them, thank them, and let them get on with it. And for this reason, Mr Mayor, for those reasons, I won't be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Naji. Can I just comment, and I think contrary to the General Manager's comment, I'm sorry, General Manager, I think it's important, and I think council officers should certainly take direction, that the motion explicitly says that this should only be done using existing information and high-level estimates. So I'd assume that the meaning of that is that if you do have to go to external resources to do any of this work, then that work simply shouldn't be done, because it's quite explicit that it shouldn't spend any money producing additional information. That'd be fair to say? Yep. Good. Councillor Curry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and appreciate your comments. I'm never one for big reports, but I think we have to continue to be progressive in this space. And there's the technology is changing, there's a lot of opportunities, and I think in this case, to your point, Mr Mayor, we're just looking at a high level. What are we doing? And take the points, but what can we also do? And, is there an option? I mean, you made the point, and I don't know, Councillor Naji, that, there's companies that will do this for council. So, you know, that could form part of that. Well, if others are going to do some of that, well, then we need to know that and we need to advocate for that as well. So it's important to look at all the opportunities there to form that. And, you know, we've got to, you know, points taken and understand the views, but I think, you know, it's a fast-moving place, and I also think there's an opportunity I'm getting from residents wanting to understand a little bit more about their own homes and how they can connect more around their around batteries and things like that. So there's, you know, there's some broader opportunity there to sort of create an ecosystem. And I'm no expert, but going back into the grid and all those sorts of things. So, you know, I take your point, Councillor Nudge, but I just but I think in this case, if to your point, General Manager, can it be done with current information we have and just that little bit more overview and looking at further opportunities?
General Manager.
So listening to the debate, what I'm understanding is you don't want us to go out and spend any money on this as a project. So what we would have to come back with is what can we do internally? Our staff have some level of skill to assess whether or not a project would be viable, but we usually need some external support to do that. I'm not aware of the companies who will come and do it for free, but if they're out there and they absolutely are doing it bona fide, then we're happy to tap into those. But at the moment, when we have sought external expertise, there has been a cost associated with that. So we're happy to look into that and take any referrals that you might have so that we can work with those companies and see if it's possible to get that expertise free of charge.
Thank you, General Manager. Any further discussion? Councillor Barlow was...
No, just a comment that SS Rock might be able to help. I don't want to see any money being spent on this with our staff that we've got. I feel they, well, as the General Manager said, they've got expertise in certain fields. I know some have got more than others in whatever. So I'm more in the fact that do we need to spend any more money? SS Rock, most of it will come up for them because that's how our energy supply is done. Our lighting was done that way. Everything was done through a system with SS Rock. And this could be, I'd say, one thing that will go on to, they will be looking at. So I'm more the concern that we're putting more work on the staff and we keep putting report after report to them. And Fix It Sisters, it's a council building, Kiama RSL. They have applied for a community solar system, and that's what maybe we should be doing. We should be advertising. This is what you can apply for, and okay, and they've applied for the funding. I think it's Commonwealth funding, so maybe that we should be advocating for that as well. That here is something that you can do. It's council's building, but Fix It Sisters are putting the solar on the roof to help it's for their own benefit in the long term. So I think there should be something there to try and get the community involved, but by advising them where to go.
Councillor Barlow, Councillor Morrissey.
Yeah, thank you. I was just summarising. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah,
yes?
I can hear you.
Yeah, cool. I was actually just summarising those last 2 points, actually. And maybe Councillor Douglas, if you don't mind, can you just clarify? Because I do think you said that there are companies out there that offer this type of service at no charge because there is something in it for them. If you're in a position to answer, is that correct?
Councillor Douglas.
I don't have a commercial and industrial rooftop, but I believe that is the case, that like when you get a home solar and battery quote, you know, I got 3 solar and battery quotes for my home. I believe that's a competitive market out there. When I was looking through media this week, there was a really great story about a company that had just won a $50 million contract to supply the Western Sydney Airport with on-site renewable energy. So I believe it's a competitive market now that the government has created this rebate. So I do believe, but I can't be 100% sure because I have no commercial interest in this personally.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just saying, like, if there is, as the general manager referenced, then maybe just incorporate that if there are opportunities where they'll offer this pro bono, a pro bono assessment, maybe you can incorporate that even into the opening line of the motion to say that council using existing information or companies who will provide a service pro bono to council. So that would just be a suggestion to give some different direction, but also to Councillor Barlow's point, maybe just forward a copy of this motion if it does go get up to SS Rock for their review and response about how they might be able to meet economies of scale if there is a cost.
Are you happy with those additions, Councillor Douglas?
Yeah, I'm happy with those additions, and I'm also happy with the suggestion that Councillor Barlow made that council do some advertisement about this rebate to our constituents, because we have got a lot of constituents who are ratepayers of businesses in industrial areas in Botany and Mascot, and they could have a lot to gain. I actually went and visited Flight Risk, which is an e-bike company in Mascot, and they already have rooftop solar all over their warehouse, and they already had big batteries and were benefiting a lot from it, and that was before the rebate. And they did that through a commercial provider who just rang them up and said, this is a service that we offer. I don't believe that they had to pay for that service, but I'm not 100% sure. I would just like to say that in closing, if I can, Mr. Mayor, that I think there is a benefit analysis that we have to weigh up of not doing more. Yes, council is doing good practice, and I'm not trying to undervalue what council is already doing, but we do have a limited window. This would be work potentially done in the 27-28 budget cycle. That's only a couple of years out from the end of the SRES altogether in 2030. So if we don't get our skates on and look at this as a holistic project with all of our rooftops, we may have an opportunity, we may not get this opportunity. And I fear waiting for SS Rock to get organised, which is a much bigger project of all the councils in the South Sydney Region of Council, could also be an impediment. It could be a barrier rather than a rocket ship. I would also just say that there's real opportunities specifically for areas with a lot of high-rise. So we've got, Mascot, Walleye Creek, East Gardens, Rockdale and Brighton all have high density. Those high-rises, high density, they have limited roof space. They can't put rooftop solar on their roofs at the scale that's required to run power. But by having it on these commercial and industrial buildings, we can then share power from our rooftops, from our large buildings, to those neighbouring residents to give them access to cheap rooftop solar as well. So it's also an energy equity issue for our residents living in high density.
Councillor Douglas.
Was there reference to SS Rock? So I can't see, because I think we agreed to put something in there. Just even a copy of this motion sent to SS Rock for review.
Perhaps an additional point at the end is that this motion be, point 3, that this motion be forwarded to SS Rock. Who, while we're talking about SS Rock, I'm sure they would not slow us down in this. They've been leading the nation, I think, in this area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through LED light conversion, through renewable energy purchasing agreements. They do an excellent job very quickly. Councillors, all those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Declare it carried. So I know we're almost at the end of the agenda, councillors, but if I can ask for your indulgence, can we take a quick break for 3 minutes? I'm just not feeling the best. Can move Councillor Curry, seconded Councillor Bezic. All in favour, all against. Declare that carried. We'll reconvene at 9:02 p.m. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, councillors. Declare the meeting reopened at 9:04 p.m. Thank you for that. Item 13.7, notice of motion Bayside Sports Ground Surface Policy. Move Councillor Douglas. Do I have a seconder? Second, Councillor Bredethoff. Councillor Douglas.
I think everyone around this room knows that decisions about sporting fields in Bayside haven't always been easy. So I want to be really clear about what this motion isn't. This isn't a motion against synthetic turf. In fact, it deliberately asks Council to consider natural turf, synthetic turf, hybrid surfaces and emerging technologies. And I'm doing so with Councillor Janine because I believe in this Council's decision-making ability to lead on good governance. And I'm actually very encouraged by the General Manager's response to this motion. Staff advisor that are already drafting a sports field and playing surface framework dealing with purpose, objectives, guiding principles and an assessment framework. That's really great, and it tells me we're headed in much the same direction. So I don't see the staff work and this motion as competing proposals. I see an opportunity to bring them together. Let's use the substantial work staff have already done, put it through the sports forum and make sure the final policy gives Council a clear, transparent and evidence-based framework grounded in these three principles. Why? Because we have a growing demand for sport. We have limited land, we have residents who deeply value our parks and open spaces. We have sporting clubs that understandably want reliable access to fields. And we have a responsibility to spend ratepayers' money wisely. Let's agree on how we make these decisions before we're in the middle of making the next one. Because we've done an enormous amount of work on this issue. As a council, we've commissioned reports, we've looked at costs, we've considered environmental impacts, we've heard from sporting groups and residents, and importantly, council now has years of practical experience in managing both natural and synthetic fields. So I don't think we need another big study. I think we need to turn what we've learned into good policy. And I think that policy should ask three pretty straightforward questions. What best meets human and community need? When we need enough sporting capacity for our growing population. Kids need somewhere to play football, clubs need reliable fields. But sporting grounds are also public open space. They are places where people walk their dogs, fly a kite, kick a ball, exercise, work out, sit under a tree, or simply just enjoy being. So we need to consider all of those uses. Secondly, what represents responsible use of ratepayers' money? Not simply what is the cheapest to build, but what is the cost over its whole life? Construction, maintenance, water, energy, renewal, replacement, and ultimately disposal. Because sometimes the options with the highest upfront cost might prove better value over 20 years. Sometimes it won't. Let's actually compare them. And thirdly, what protects nature and makes Bayside more resilient to climate change? This means looking at urban heat, water, drainage, soil health, biodiversity, microplastics, waste and end-of-life disposal. Because one consideration shouldn't automatically trump everything else. There are real costs and benefits and they belong in our decision-making. There's another part of this motion I think that's particularly important. Before we decide that the answer to increasing sporting capacity is a major new capital project, let's ask what else we can do with the fields we've already got. Can better drainage get us more playing hours, like we've heard tonight? Can irrigation help? Can lighting and scheduling increase utilisation? We're working on that space. Can improved natural turf management make a field more resilient? Could hybrid surfaces or new technologies give us another option? Let's squeeze every bit of value we reasonably can from our existing assets before asking ratepayers to fund and maintain major new infrastructure. Fiscal responsibility, human and community need, protecting nature and building climate resilient infrastructure. Because whatever someone's view has been on individual sporting fields in the past, surely we must agree that future decisions should be transparent, consistent, based on evidence. That when the next difficult decision comes before us, we aren't starting the debate from scratch. We've already agreed on the principles by which we will make the decision. That's what good governance looks like. I've seen it here, and that's what this motion is asking Council to put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Bigelow.
Just a quick one. I think obviously Councillor Douglas noted the General Manager's comments there, which I'll give some extra weight to as well. I think given there is that framework which is being developed, and obviously it sounds like the intent is to combine them at some point, I think the way the motion is written, though, is to design a new policy. And I just wonder whether there is a way to land this motion which acknowledges that one is being developed and that these things will also be considered as part of that rather than creating a new policy. I just think if there's kind of a middle ground there which doesn't direct a new policy to be designed, because I think the way it's written, it kind of looks like it's duplicating. So I don't have a suggestion in terms of the amendment, but I think there could be a way as a middle ground. It might be to note, that this other policy is being developed and that policy should also consider these things. That might be a way to find middle ground. Thank you.
Councillor, first, would Councillor Douglas like to respond to that?
Yeah, I think I would like to respond to that. I think that's a good suggestion. I mean, perhaps it's that we, the first point be that the sporting fields and playing surface framework being developed considers the points raised in this motion. Yep.
Councillor Naji.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I begin by saying I have no argument with the Deputy Mayor's intention here and no argument with the three principles in the motion: fiscal responsibility, community need, and looking after the natural environment. Nobody in this chamber is going to stand up and speak against any of those. Councillor Douglas has put them well, and I want that on the record before I say what I'm about to say. My difficulty is not with the principles, it is with the timing. It's with what this motion actually adds, and above all, it's with what it puts at risk. Mr. Mayor, this council has already voted to develop a framework for all weather fields, and I'll name 2 at Jellicoe, 1 at Lestrange, and 1 at Kingsgrove. That was not a thought bubble. That was a decision of this council taken deliberately because we accepted that our grounds cannot carry the demand being placed on them. Those 4 fields are in the pipeline right now. So before we resolve anything tonight, I'd ask every councillor to turn to part 4 of this motion. It asks that the Policy Support Council to consider the full range of options for increasing capacity, resilience and longevity of existing sports ground. And I'm quoting before significant new capital investment. Mr. Mayor, read that sentence again and think about it. Think about what it does to 4 fields that are already approved. It creates a gate. It puts a test in front of capital investment that this council has already decided to make. I don't say for a moment that Councillor Douglas intends that, but intention isn't what governs once a resolution is on the books. What governs is the words, and the words say before significant new capital investment. That is how our 4 fields get railroaded. Not by anyone voting them down. Nobody in this chamber would do that. But by a policy that has to come back first and set off tests that have to be satisfied first and a report that has to be considered first. And a season goes by and then another one. Mr. Mayor, look at the General Manager's comment on this item. It tells us that this notice of motion is largely dealt with already by the sports fields and playing surface framework that staff have drafted. It already addresses purpose, objectives, guiding principles and an assessment framework. It's going to a future committee meeting. It's on the agenda of the November Bayside Sports Forum, where the clubs themselves get a say. So the work exists, it's drafted, it's scheduled, and it's about to go in front of the very people it affects. What we are being asked to do tonight is to resolve to commence work our staff have already finished. And in doing it, hang a condition over 4 fields we've already committed to. Now, let them tell you what else is happening while we debate this. Our neighbours at St George's River are pushing for additional all-weather field of their own. And the reference they're using, the example they point to, is Bayside. Bayside is the council that other council cite when they argue for better facilities for their kids. I'd rather we kept that reputation than spent it, because if tonight's Bayside resolves to write a policy that sits in front of its own approved fields, the message to every club in this LGA and to every council watching us is that Bayside has gone cold on the very thing it was being held up for. Mr Mayor, our kids don't get their seasons back. A 12-year-old who misses 2 winters because a policy was being drafted does not get those 2 winters returned to her when the report finally comes to council. Let's not railroad our kids' future for a document that our staff have already written. None of this criticism of the Deputy Mayor's judgment about what matters. She's right that we should decide these things consistently rather than project by project. My submission is simple, Mr Mayor, that Council has already put that in motion, and the right forum to shape it is the sports forum in November, with the clubs in the room, not a resolution tonight that duplicates the work and puts handbrake on 4 approved fields. I'd say to Councillor Douglas, directly bring one of these principles to that November discussion and I will back them there. But I can't support a resolution tonight that risks delaying fields this council has already voted for. So on that basis, Mr Mayor, I won't be supporting this motion.
Councillor Naji, further discussion. Councillor Barlow.
I'd like just to move a motion that this be received and noted until, and because we're going and we look at what, and then after we read if you go to the sports forum or the reports that are coming to that, that is what you should be waiting for. You shouldn't, I can't support something that we've already got, something that's already in the pipeline and will be there in November. So I think it should be received and noted. Thank you for all the detail, but we need to look at what the council staff are prepared before any decision is made on this.
I think that's a foreshadowed motion to receive and note it. Further discussion, councillors. Councillor Brederhoft.
I just want to say I don't think this motion on point 4 does imply that this be adopted retrospectively to something that council previously has already approved.
Fair enough.
Can I ask a question about
Yep.
that? I mean, I just genuinely do have a question about that, because my understanding is that we have approved design for 4 fields. We haven't approved yet significant new capital investment because we have to go through a design process first.
Correct.
And then, so I think there is a little bit of miscommunication or disinformation there. I also, just a genuine question, would this framework, negate those decisions made previously by council around the design proceeding? Because I don't believe that that is the intent of the motion, is to stop what council has already decreed.
No, I don't think you can unmake those decisions unless it's done explicitly, but through the General Manager.
Through the Mayor, the intent of putting the framework together is to inform future decisions. It wasn't meant to be retrospective or to reopen decisions that have already been made.
Any further discussion, councillors? No further discussion. Look, can I just make the point that if this motion is to get up, I would support adding that in terms of the fiscal responsibility point at 3A, that land costs be included as part of that consideration. I think that's an analysis that's offered. Like, land costs would generally comprise the vast bulk of the the cost of providing a sporting field, whether synthetic or natural. They dwarf any other expenditure because we only have limited open space. So I think those words should be added there. The consent of the mover of the motion.
If this gets up at the Trumper report, perhaps 2 months, it's going to be months and months for that detail.
Well, I don't disagree. I'm just saying if it does get up, then I think that should be included. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you for the debate. I think the intent of the council is similar to the intent of the motion. I think it's a value add, bringing lots of different things that we've already been discussing as a council together. I hope that the motion gets passed because I do think that this will provide clearer, good governance, more transparency. And and as we've heard, it does not negate any of the decisions that have been made to date, and it will not put a stop on those 4 fields that have been decreed by the council.
Councillor Douglas. Sorry, can we just scroll up to what there was various discussion about what's being added and removed? And that's the foreshadowed motion. Oh no, that considers the point. All right, councillors. All those in favour? All those against? Declare the motion lost. Division's been called.
Mr Mayor, for completion's sake, should we have a second for the foreshadow?
Yes. Councillor Saranovsky seconded the foreshadowed motion. Councillor Curry. Councillor Bezic.
Against.
Councillor Boudeleau.
Against.
Councillor Strong. Councillor Brederhoft. Councillor Saranovsky.
Against.
Councillor Naji.
Against.
Councillor Awada.
Against.
Councillor Barlow. Councillor Douglas. Councillor Kasim.
For.
Councillor Morrissey.
Against.
Myself against. I need to add up. Declare the motion lost. Councillor Duska has dropped offline, so. The foreshadowed motion, do you wish to speak, Councillor Barlow? No, any further discussion? I think your tape is read. Any further discussion, councillors? No. All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. We now move to questions with notice, councillors. Sorry, yeah, I'll do it after questions with notice. Any questions with notice, councillors? Councillor Brederhoft? We've submitted it. Anything further, councillors? No. We move to item CPE 26.020, Mascot Town Centre Master Plan. I pulled this item out, councillors. Look, I just thought that it would be worth this being deferred back to the committee for further consideration about the site boundaries. If any councillors need to discuss that further, we'd need to go into confidential session, but perhaps we could have that discussion at the committee because a few councillors are online, unless councillors would like to have it tonight.
Yeah, that makes sense, Mr Mayor. If we can take it back to the committee and it comes back to council, that's the right way to.
Yeah, there's just been a new strategic planning document for the whole of Sydney released, so I think it's worth revisiting this and having a discussion about where exactly this sits. So do I have a mover into seconder? Moved Councillor Naji, seconded Councillor Saranovsky. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, the item be deferred. Back to the committee. All those in favour, all those against, declare it carried. Declare the meeting closed at 9:23